My fiancée, a woman I had never actually met in person, suddenly made it official. On Instagram. In the photo, she was nestled in the arms of a handsome man, her smile sweeter than honey. The caption read, "The rest of my life starts now. Please treat me well." I tapped the comment section, intending to ask her exactly what that made me. Her bona fide fiancé. A red exclamation mark stung my eyes. I'd been blocked. The cold light of the phone screen reflected on my expressionless face. The woman in the photo was Victoria Vance, the fiancée my grandfather had arranged for me. Widely recognized as New York City's top beauty and the Ice Queen CEO, the man beside her was Julian Sterling, one of the city's foremost eligible bachelors, the sole heir to the Sterling Empire, and her so-called childhood sweetheart. Below the post, the comments were a wall of congratulations. Power couple, a match made in heaven. Congrats, CEO Vance. Julian is the man. Finally, you guys are too sweet. I scrolled through the comments blankly, as if watching a farce that had nothing to do with me, until a specific comment jumped out. It was from Eleanor Vance, Victoria's mother and my would-be mother-in-law. She had posted a screenshot of a wire transfer for $50,000, captioned, "My wonderful son-in-law, Mom's giving you a big bonus." Below it, Julian Sterling replied instantly, "Thanks, Mom." That mom was called out so naturally, so loudly. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, revealing a cold smirk. 3 years ago, my grandfather fell critically ill and handed me an ancient, rustic medallion, telling me it was the token of the pledge between the Stone and Vance families. He made me promise to go to New York to fulfill the engagement. He said the Vance family had done us a favor, and this marriage could not be reneged upon. So I came. But the Vances, from top to bottom, never once looked me in the eye. Victoria said, "I could never marry a man with no background like you. I'll break this engagement sooner or later." Her mother, Eleanor, said, "Caleb, our house isn't a shelter. If you live here, remember to pay the $500 for rent and utilities on time." Her father, Richard Vance, couldn't even be bothered to speak to me. Every time he saw me, his eyes looked like he was staring at a bothersome fly. I thought this was just a test. Now I see, it was nothing but utter humiliation from start to finish. I closed Instagram, opened my contacts, and dialed a number I hadn't touched in 3 years. The call was answered almost instantly. "Commander," an old man's voice came through, respectful and trembling with excitement. "You finally contacted me." "Winston," my voice was calm, betraying no emotion. "The 3-year vacation is over." On the other end, Winston's breath hitched. "Commander, do you mean?" "Send the order," I said, staring out at the glittering night skyline of New York. "The Vanguard is reactivating." I paused. "Also, investigate the Sterling family and the Vance Group in NYC. I want everything on them sent to my phone within 10 minutes. "Yes, Commander." Winston's voice was filled with suppressed exhilaration. "The entire Vanguard awaits your return." Hanging up, I tossed the burner phone I'd used for 3 years into the trash can. It was time to end this game of playing the poor boy. Some people refuse to be given face, so the only option is to grind their faces into the dirt. Less than 5 minutes later, a brand new encrypted smartphone was respectfully delivered to the door of my rental apartment. I knew the courier. It was the Vanguard's intelligence chief in New York, codenamed Siren. To the outside world, she was the billionaire chairwoman of Nebula Corp, Scarlett. At this moment, this ice-cold beauty, unattainable to outsiders, was kneeling on one knee before me, presenting the phone with both hands. "Commander, Scarlett Cross, New York Division Head, reporting for duty." Her voice carried a tremor, excitement, and awe. I took the phone and gave a faint rise. "Thank you, Commander." Scarlett stood up but kept her body slightly bowed, daring not to look me in the eye. "You're not needed here. Go back." I waved my hand. "Yes." Scarlett retreated 3 steps respectfully before turning to leave. The entire process was silent. I unlocked the new phone. All the software I needed was pre-installed. An encrypted file lay quietly on the desktop. I opened it. The Vance Group, market cap of $5 billion, primary business in real estate. However, their capital chain had been tight recently, barely maintained by bank loans and support from the Sterling family. The Sterling family, a top-tier New York dynasty, assets nearing $100 billion, involved in finance, tech, and entertainment, with deep roots. Julian Sterling was the sole heir. At the end of the file, there was a specially marked video. I played it. The screen showed Victoria Vance and Julian Sterling in a luxury private room. Julian had his arm around Victoria's waist, smiling smugly. "Victoria, did you deal with that hillbilly fiancé of yours?" A flash of disgust crossed Victoria's face. Just a country bumpkin. Is he even worthy of me? My mom is already preparing to call him and tell him to get lost. Good. Julian kissed her on the cheek. Once he's gone, I'll have my dad give the South Bronx Development Project to your family and inject $3 billion in capital as our engagement gift. Thank you, Julian. Victoria revealed a shy smile and leaned in to kiss him. The video ended there. I closed the video expressionlessly, but my heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand. A cold rage rushed from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. So that's it. For a $3 billion injection and a piece of land, they could kick me, the legitimate fiancé, aside like garbage. Nice work, Vance family. Nice work, Victoria. Just then a call came in. Caller ID, Eleanor Vance. I swiped to answer. Before I could speak, Eleanor's acidic voice pierced through. Caleb Stone, you saw Victoria's post, right? I won't waste breath on you. Your engagement to Victoria is hereby void. Our family is about to merge with the Sterlings. A poor loser like you needs to stop dreaming you're in her league and disappear from my daughter's world immediately. Her voice was sharp and shrill, like needles stabbing my eardrums. I didn't speak, listening quietly. Eleanor seemed to think that wasn't enough and continued. By the way, that broken medallion your grandfather gave us back then? Bring it to the Vance estate tomorrow and return it to its original owner. The thing is worthless, but it's bad luck to keep it. Are you done? I finally spoke, my voice terrifyingly calm. Eleanor paused, seemingly surprised by my reaction. She raised her volume. What is that attitude? Let me tell you, Caleb, don't push your luck. Get lost. Fine. I said just one word and hung up directly. Then, I blocked Eleanor's number. Listening to the busy signal, Eleanor nearly smashed her phone in anger. The audacity! That little animal dared to hang up on me. Beside her, Victoria frowned. Mom, why waste words on him? He's just a low-class person. Let her bring the thing back tomorrow, then kick him out. You're right. Eleanor took a deep breath, a smug smile returning to her face. Once we marry into the Sterling family, we'll be top-tier nobility in New York. Who will even remember who this hillbilly is? They would never know what exactly they had just thrown away. The next day, I didn't go to the Vance house. Eleanor's calls hadn't stopped since morning, starting with urging, turning to cursing, and finally to threats. I didn't answer a single one, until the afternoon when the door to my rental was kicked open. With a loud bang, the flimsy wooden door flew inward, smashing against the wall and shattering into pieces. Julian Sterling swaggered in, flanked by 4 bodyguards in black suits. He looked arrogant, scanning my apartment, which was less than 200 square feet, pinching his nose with a look of utter disgust. Holy shit, Victoria's loser fiancé lives in a pigsty like this. Caleb Stone, right? You ungrateful piece of trash. Aunt Eleanor told you to drop off the item, and you dare not to go. He walked up to me, looking down with eyes full of disdain and provocation. Kid, I'm Victoria's current boyfriend, Julian Sterling. If you know what's good for you, hand over that broken medallion right now, immediately. Then kneel and knock your head on the floor 3 times for me, and roll yourself out of New York. Otherwise, I'll make sure you leave on a stretcher. I slowly looked up, staring at his face, which had arrogant written all over it, and asked calmly, Did you kick the door? Julian paused, then burst into laughter as if he'd heard the world's funniest joke. I kicked it. So what? It's just a broken door. I'll pay you 10 grand. That's enough for you to buy a gold one. The bodyguards behind him roared with laughter. Kid, do you not understand the situation? Trying to act tough in front of Mr. Sterling? Who do you think you are? I said nothing more, just slowly stood up. Seeing me rise, Julian thought I was scared, and his smile grew even more triumphant. What? Finally figured out? Should have done this earlier instead of forcing me to get my hands dirty. He reached out, patting my cheek, his tone frivolous. Remember, there are some people you can't afford to offend in this lifetime. Is a woman like Victoria really someone a waste like you can touch? His hand was cold. His words were filthy. As his palm was about to descend a second time, I moved. Fast as lightning. Crack. A crisp sound of fracturing bone was jarringly loud in the cramped room. Julian's smile froze instantly, replaced by extreme agony and disbelief. His wrist was bent at a grotesque angle. I held his hand, expressionless. Oh, the delayed pain finally hit, making him squeal like a slaughtered pig. Cold sweat instantly beaded on his forehead. My hand is broken. The 4 bodyguards behind him finally reacted, roaring as they charged at me. You have a death wish. Let go of Mr. Sterling. My eyes went cold. Gripping Julian's wrist, I used him as a weapon, swinging him outward. Thud, 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 for muffled impacts. The 4 burly bodyguards were sent flying as if hit by a truck, slamming into the walls, foaming at the mouth, instantly incapacitated. The whole process took less than 3 seconds. The room was left with only Julian's screaming from the intense pain. I released his hand, and he immediately collapsed like a pile of mud, cradling his broken wrist, looking at me with terror, his body trembling uncontrollably. "You? Who the hell are you? You dare touch me? Do you know who I am?" He was still using his pitiful family background to threaten me. I walked up to him, crouched down, picked up the wallet he had dropped, and pulled out a black card. "You said you'd pay me 10 grand for the door?" I tapped his pale face with the card. "Not enough. This door was made of century-old golden Nama wood. My grandfather crafted it for me by hand. It was one of a kind in the world. Its value is probably your entire Sterling family, multiplied by 10. I stood up and tossed the black card carelessly onto his face. "Tomorrow, the Vance family is holding a gala to announce your engagement, right? I'll be there. Go back and tell everyone in the Vance and Sterling families to wash their necks and wait for me. Not only will I attend, but I will also deliver a grand gift that you absolutely cannot afford." With that, I didn't spare him another glance, turning and walking out of the dilapidated apartment, leaving Julian Sterling alone, shivering in endless fear and humiliation. He finally realized he seemed to have provoked someone he absolutely should not have provoked. New York City Grand Hyatt Hotel. The penthouse ballroom was ablaze with lights, packed with high society. The engagement gala for the Vance and Sterling families had invited almost every person of consequence in New York. Richard and Eleanor Vance, dressed in immaculate formal wear, greeted guests with flushed faces, basking in the envy and flattery of the crowd. "Chairman Vance, congratulations. Joining forces with the Sterling family, the Vance group is going to skyrocket. Absolutely. Miss Victoria and Julian are truly a match made in heaven." Eleanor laughed so hard she couldn't close her mouth. "Oh, you flatter us. It's all destiny." Victoria, wearing a pure white evening gown, held Julian's arm as they stood in the center of the ballroom, accepting everyone's blessings. She looked like a proud swan, enjoying the sensation of being the center of attention. Julian had a thick cast on his wrist, but his face wore a look of sickly excitement. He had already told his father, Arthur Sterling, the head of the house, about what happened yesterday. Arthur was furious and immediately declared that at tonight's banquet, he would make that arrogant kid die without a grave. So, Julian wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he was full of anticipation. He looked forward to seeing Caleb kneeling before him, begging for mercy. "Julian, your hand. Is it really okay?" Victoria looked at his cast, a trace of worry in her eyes. "Don't worry, just a minor injury," Julian said dismissively. "I've already made arrangements. Today, that loser will pay 100-fold price for what he did." Victoria nodded, her eyes turning cold. She would absolutely not allow her engagement party to be ruined by a hillbilly. Just then, the ballroom doors were pushed open. A young man wearing ordinary casual clothes walked in slowly. It was Caleb Stone. His appearance instantly drew the attention of the entire room. Everyone froze. Who was this? Dressed so shabbily, did he walk into the wrong place? Who was that guy? Dressed like a delivery boy, daring to come to an event like this? No idea. Never seen him. Probably here to crash for free food and drinks. Eleanor recognized me instantly, her face turning incredibly ugly. Clacking her high heels, she stormed over to me, lowered her voice, and shrieked, "Caleb, who let you in? What are you doing here? Haven't you embarrassed us enough?" I ignored her, my gaze passing over her to look at Victoria and Julian not far away. Seeing me, Julian immediately grinned savagely. He pointed at me and shouted to the security guards beside him, "That's him. Grab him. Break his legs." Several guards immediately lunged at me like wolves. The guests in the ballroom wore expressions of anticipation, ready for a show. Victoria frowned, her eyes filled with disgust and disdain. She felt my presence alone was an insult to her. However, the next second, everyone was stunned. The aggressive guards, before they could get within 10 feet of me, seemed to be hit by an invisible force. One by one, they flew backward screaming, crashing to the floor unconscious. The entire hall went dead silent. Everyone looked at me like I was a monster. Eleanor retreated 2 steps in fear, pointing at me, her lips trembling. You, what did you do?" I didn't answer her. I just took a step, then another, walking toward the high stage in the center of the ballroom. Every step I took seemed to stomp on everyone's heartbeat. No one dared to stop me. I walked onto the stage, picked up the microphone, scanned the audience, and finally rested my gaze on the pale-faced Victoria and Julian. Good evening, everyone. Let me introduce myself. I am Caleb Stone. I am Miss Victoria Vance's rightfully betrothed, the fiancé she couldn't get rid of. Her ex-fiancé. With one sentence, the whole room was in an uproar. What? Ex-fiancé? So the real deal showed up at the door. This is going to be good. High society drama. A chaotic wedding scene. The guests' whispers exploded into chaos. Richard and Eleanor's faces turned the color of raw liver. A scandal. This was a massive family scandal. They wished they could find a crack in the floor to crawl into. Nonsense. Eleanor was the first to react, rushing onto the stage to snatch my microphone, screaming, "You lunatic! Security! Where the hell is security? Throw him out." I simply glanced at her coldly. That look was like staring at a corpse. Eleanor shuddered violently at the killing intent in my eyes. The rest of her words stuck in her throat, unable to utter a sound. "Caleb, what exactly do you want?" Victoria finally spoke, her face icy, her voice full of anger and humiliation. "Do you think making a scene here will make me look back at you? Let me tell you, it's impossible. You only make me feel more disgusted." "Look back." I laughed, the sound full of mockery. "Miss Vance, aren't you thinking a little too highly of yourself? I didn't come here today to beg you to come back. I came to take back what is mine." I paused, turning my gaze to Eleanor. "Mrs. Vance, didn't you ask me to return the token to you?" Eleanor nodded subconsciously. I pulled the dragon-shaped medallion from my pocket. It was rustic and unadorned, looking completely unremarkable under the dazzling lights of the ballroom. "That's it." Julian's father, Arthur Sterling, stepped forward. He was a middle-aged man who looked imposing, currently sizing me up with scrutiny. "Just a piece of broken jade." He snorted, his tone dripping with contempt. "Kid, I don't care who you are. Daring to cause trouble here means you have no respect for my Sterling family. Men." He waved his hand. "Cripple him." As soon as his voice fell, a group of men in black suits with bulging temples walked out from behind the crowd, surrounding me. These men were ancient martial arts experts kept by the Sterling family at a high price. Each was formidable. Seeing them, a cruel smile appeared on Julian's face again. "Caleb, you're dead. Today I'll show you what true despair is." The guests retreated in fear, afraid of being caught in the crossfire. A flash of pleasure appeared in Victoria's eyes. She wished I would vanish from this world immediately. However, facing the encirclement of these dozen experts, my face still showed no fear. I simply raised the medallion in my hand and said calmly to everyone, "You Vances always thought this medallion was the dowry from my Stone family, didn't you?" Richard frowned. "Is it not?" "Of course not." I shook my head, a strange smile curling my lips. "This medallion isn't a dowry. It's a key." As I spoke, under everyone's astonished gaze, I held the medallion high and then smashed it violently against the floor. Crack! The medallion shattered on impact. "Are you crazy?" Eleanor screamed. Richard and Victoria were also stunned. But in the next second, something even more shocking happened. From the shattered remains of the medallion, a small, pitch-black chip engraved with complex patterns rolled out. I bent down and picked up the chip, toying with it in my fingers, my eyes sweeping over the dumbfounded faces of the Vance family. This chip is the real dowry. Its name is Phoenix. Inside, it stores the world's most cutting-edge biomedical technology. Its value is enough to buy 10, no, 100 of your Vance groups. My grandfather owed your ancestors a favor back then. He intended to use this technology to help the Vance family soar and become a true world-class financial power. A pity. I shook my head and sighed softly. You people have eyes, but cannot see. Dead silence filled the room. Everyone was shaken by my words. A tiny chip worth 100 Vance groups? How was that possible? Was this kid daydreaming? Richard was the first to react. Pointing at me, he trembled with rage. Absolute nonsense. Utter gibberish. Who do you think you are? Who are you trying to fool with this story? Eleanor also shrieked. Exactly. What good stuff could a poor loser bring out? Biotech? Do you think this is a movie? I think you smashed the medallion just to make up a story, to humiliate us. Arthur Sterling let out a disdainful sneer. Playing tricks. Kid, your performance is over. Now, it's time to pay the price for your stupidity. His eyes sharpened as he shouted at the bodyguards. What are you waiting for? Get him. The group of martial arts experts exchanged glances, hesitated no longer, and roared as they charged me. Fist winds howled, tearing through the air. The guests let out gasps of alarm. Victoria instinctively closed her eyes. She seemed to have already foreseen the bloody scene of my bones being shattered. However, The expected screams did not come. What came was a series of bone-cracking sounds and stifled groans rising one after another. She opened her eyes abruptly. The scene before her caused her pupils to contract sharply. I was standing in the same spot, having not moved an inch. Yet the dozen sterling experts who had charged me were now all lying on the ground in twisted postures, each clutching their arms or legs, wailing in pain. No one saw clearly how I had moved. It was as if in just a single breath, the battle was already over. How is this possible? The smile on Arthur's face froze completely, his eyes bulging out. These experts he kept were ruthless characters who could take on 10 men each. Now, they were all taken down by one kid in an instant. Julian was so scared he fell back on his butt, looking at me with unprecedented terror. A monster. This guy was simply a monster. The entire venue was silent as a graveyard. The guests looked at me, their gazes shifting from amusement to the awe and fear one reserves for a deity. I dusted off my hands, my gaze falling on the Vance family again. Now, do you still think I'm telling stories? Richard, Eleanor, and Victoria, their faces were deathly pale, unable to utter a word. The facts were right in front of them. They had no choice but to believe. I walked leisurely toward Arthur Sterling. Arthur scrambled backward in fear, shouting with false bravado. What do you want? I'm warning you. This is the Grand Hyatt. If you dare try anything, Chairman Thorne won't let you off. The Chairman Thorne he mentioned was the hidden boss of the Grand Hyatt and the president of the New York Chamber of Commerce, Magnus Thorne. In New York, the name Magnus Thorne was synonymous with power. Hearing this name, the guests subconsciously straightened their backs, as if finding a pillar of support. A glimmer of hope reignited in the eyes of the Vance family. Oh, Magnus Thorne. I smiled playfully. Are you talking about him? As my voice fell, the ballroom doors were pushed open again. An old man wearing a bespoke classic suit, spirited and imposing without anger, walked in with large strides, surrounded by an entourage. It was the underground emperor of New York, Magnus Thorne. Chairman Thorne, you're here. Arthur looked like he saw a savior, scrambling over, pointing at me, crying out, Chairman Thorne, you have to bring justice for me. This kid is causing trouble on your turf and injure my men. Eleanor and Richard also hurried over, looking aggrieved as they lodged their complaints. Chairman Thorne, arrest him quickly. Such a thug must not be spared. Everyone thought Magnus Thorne would fly into a rage and order me to be torn to pieces. However, Magnus Thorne's next move made everyone's jaws drop to the floor. He didn't even glance at Arthur. He walked straight past him. Then, under everyone's incredulous gaze, this big shot who could make all of New York tremble with a stomp of his foot walked up to me. Thud! He dropped to one knee. He lowered his proud head and shouted in a voice that was incredibly devout, incredibly emotional, and even trembling, the Vanguard, New York Division helm, Magnus Thorne, I welcome the commander's return. Boom! Magnus Thorne's kneeling, his shout. It was like a nuclear bomb detonating in the ballroom. The entire world seemed to be muted in that instant. Everyone's brain went into shutdown. The expression on Arthur Sterling's face froze from the ecstasy of seeing a savior, then shattered inch by inch, leaving only endless shock and confusion. Eleanor's mouth hung open, her eyes bulging like copper bells, looking as if they might fall out of their sockets. Richard swayed and nearly fainted on the spot, fortunately supported by Victoria. And Victoria, the Ice Queen who had always been high and mighty, was now looking at me like she was seeing a ghost. The blood drained instantly from her beautiful face, leaving behind a deathly pallor. Commander? The Vanguard? What was going on? Caleb Stone, the poor boy from the country who was worthless in her eyes. How could he be Magnus Thorne's commander? There must be a mistake. Yes, there must be a mistake somewhere. Chairman Thorne. Arthur's voice shook uncontrollably. He swallowed hard and pointed at me. Did you recognize the wrong person? He's just a nobody from the country. Magnus suddenly turned his head, his eyes like knives, a terrifying killing intent instantly enveloping Arthur. Insolent. Is the commander's title something an ant like you can speak directly? What are you, daring to question me? Arthur, hit by this killing intent, felt his legs go soft. Thud. He felt at his knees too, shaking like a leaf. No. I dare not. I wouldn't dare. Magnus snorted coldly, ignoring him, and turned back to me, burying his head even lower. Commander, your subordinate is late. I allowed you to be startled. Please punish me, Commander. I looked at him calmly and said, Rise. Thank you, Commander. Only then did Magnus dare to stand, but he still stood respectfully half a step behind me, like the most loyal guard. I scanned the room, looking at the elites who had once looked at me with disdain and were now shivering in fear. My gaze finally landed on the Vance and Sterling families. Now, do you have anything else to say? My voice wasn't loud, but exploded in their ears like thunderclaps. No one dared to speak. The ballroom was silent enough to hear a pin drop, save for heavy breathing and the sound of teeth chattering. Victoria looked at me, her eyes complicated to the extreme. Shock, fear, confusion, regret. She couldn't figure out how things had reached this point. The man she had despised for 3 years, whom she had discarded like trash, had transformed into a commander to whom even Magnus Thorne had to kneel. This was more absurd than a dream. If she hadn't broken the engagement, if she had treated him a little better, then would the person standing at this peak, enjoying supreme glory, be her, Victoria Vance? The thought made her heart feel like it was being viciously twisted by a giant hand, hurting so much she couldn't breathe. Tears of regret slid uncontrollably from her eyes. Caleb, she spoke subconsciously, her voice choked with sobs. Shut up. I interrupted her coldly. You are not worthy of speaking my name. Victoria's body trembled violently, her face turning even paler. I stopped looking at her and turned to Magnus, pointing at the Sterling family on the floor. I asked calmly, do you know what to do? A flash of murderous intent crossed Magnus' eyes, and he immediately bowed. Understood. Those who offend the commander shall have their entire line extinguished. From today on, there is no Sterling family in New York. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried undeniable authority and bloodlust. Hearing this, Arthur and Julian, father and son, rolled their eyes back and fainted directly from fright. No more Sterling family in New York. A casually spoken sentence had sentenced a $100 billion dynasty to death. Was this the power of the Vanguard's commander? All the guests were frightened out of their wits, wishing they could shrink into a ball to avoid my notice. Having dealt with the Sterlings, my gaze finally fell on the trembling trio of the Vance family. As for you, I looked at them, a cruel arc curling at the corner of my mouth. Death is too easy for you. I want you to live. I want you to watch with your own eyes as everything you take pride in turns to ash in front of me, bit by bit. I want you to spend the rest of your lives in endless regret and despair. My words were like cursed talismans, completely crushing the Vance family's final psychological defenses. Eleanor was the first to break. She dropped to her knees with a thud, crawling to me on all fours, hugging my leg, crying and screaming through snot and tears. Caleb, no. Commander, I was wrong. I was blind to your greatness. I look down on people. Please be the bigger person and spare our Vance family. Victoria is innocent. She was tricked by that bastard, Julian, too. She still has you in her heart. To survive, she didn't hesitate to push all the blame onto Julian and her own daughter. Looking at her ugly face, I felt only nausea. I kicked her away. Not hard, but enough to make her roll several times on the floor. Scram. I spat out one cold word. Richard Vance, seeing the scene before him, knew the tide had turned. He gave a miserable laugh, seeming to age 20 years in an instant. He helped his wife up, not begging for mercy, just looking at me with an extremely complex expression before letting out a long sigh. Karma. This is all karma. We Vances pushed immense wealth out the door with our own hands. Only Victoria didn't cry or beg. She just bit her lip hard, staring at me with a mix of regret, unwillingness, jealousy, and resentment. She didn't understand. She couldn't figure it out. Why? Why did I possess such terrifying status and power, yet disguise myself as a poor boy to stay by her side for 3 years? Was it to laugh at her? Was it to test her? If it was a test, was it too late for her to admit her mistake now? Why? She finally spoke, her voice hoarse as if squeezed from her throat. Why did you deceive me? I looked at her and laughed. Deceive you? Victoria, from beginning to end, I never deceived you. I told you my identity was something you couldn't handle. You didn't believe it. I gave you countless chances. It was you who pushed me away, time and time again. Your so-called Ice Queen persona, your so-called pride. In my eyes, they're nothing but a joke. You always feel the whole world should revolve around you, that all men should grovel at your feet. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those spineless bones. You asked me why. I took a step forward, leaning to her ear, whispering a voice only the two of us could hear, because my grandfather sent me to repay a debt. Now the debt is paid. From now on, we owe each other nothing. With that, I stopped looking at her face, which had instantly lost all color. I turned and walked out of the ballroom under Magnus Thorne's escort. As I passed the guests, they lowered their heads, daring not to breathe. At the door, I paused and looked back. The ballroom was a mess. The Sterlings lay on the floor like dead dogs. The Van Cess stood there like puppets with their souls sucked out. Those once arrogant elites were now just background decoration for this farce. I suddenly felt bored. Was it worth wasting 3 years for ants like these? Perhaps this was what grandfather meant by tempering the heart in a mortal world. Just as I was about to leave, a cool female voice came from behind. Mr. Stone, please wait. I turned and saw a woman. She wore a tailored black business suit that outlined devastating curves. On her exquisitely flawless face sat a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, making her look intellectual and elegant. It was Scarlett Cross. She had been at this gala too. At this moment, she was walking toward me gracefully, a perfectly measured smile on her face. Mr. Stone, I am Scarlett Cross of Nebula Corp. I've heard much about you. I wonder if I might have the honor of buying you a drink. Her words made every man in the room who hadn't fainted yet gasp. Scarlett Cross of Nebula Corp. That Iron Lady of New York who was rumored never to attend private banquets and never gave any man the time of day. She was actively inviting a man for a drink. Everyone looked at me as if seeing a ghost, seemingly re-evaluating my worth. I looked at Scarlett. Behind those lenses, her beautiful eyes shimmered with curiosity, inquiry, and a trace of barely concealed heat. I smiled. It seemed the game tonight wasn't over. A new prey had delivered itself to the door. Sure, I nodded. Your place. Grand Hyatt Hotel, Présidential Pont tout Suite. This was Scarlett's permanent residence in the city. Outside the massive floor-to-ceiling windows lay the most prosperous night view of New York City. The lights of thousands of homes glittered like a galaxy. Scarlett poured me a glass of 82 Lafite. The burgundy liquid swirled gently in the crystal glass, emitting a charming aroma. Commander, tonight was a dereliction of duty on my part. She handed me the glass, bowing slightly, her tone apologetic. I should have dealt with these ants beforehand. I shouldn't have let them dirty your eyes. I took the glass, took a sip, and said nothing. Her dereliction referred to not wiping out the Vance and Sterling families before I reveal my identity. In the Vanguard's rules, anyone who disrespects the commander has only one fate, vanishing from this world. Seeing I hadn't responded, Scarlett felt even more anxious. She knelt on one knee, head lowered. Please punish me, Commander. Stand up. I put down the glass and said calmly, I don't blame you. I want to play around a bit myself. Thank you, Commander. Scarlett let out a breath of relief and slowly stood up. Why did you appear there tonight? I looked at her, asking with interest. The Vance Group wanted to discuss a partnership with Nebula. Richard Vance called in many favors to send the invitation. I didn't intend to pay it any mind, but intel showed you would also attend, so you wanted to see the show? I interrupted her. Scarlett's cheeks flushed almost imperceptibly. She lowered her head. I wouldn't dare. I just wanted to see the commander. See me? I laughed. Haven't you seen me many times? In that crappy rental of mine. That's different. Scarlett looked up, her beautiful eyes flashing with strange light. In the rental, you were the commander experiencing life. In the ballroom, you were the king, holding the power of life and death, your word becoming law. That aura of total control. It fascinates me. Her voice carried a tremor, an undisguised worship. This was a smart woman, and an ambitious one. She knew what she wanted and dared to fight for it. I walked to the window, looking down at the city beneath my feet, and said calmly, You handle the Vance family matter. I want them to have nothing within 3 days, living on the streets. Yes, Scarlett responded without hesitation. As for the Sterlings, I paused. Leave it to Magnus Thorne. Tell him to clean it up thoroughly. I don't wish to hear that surname in New York ever again. Understood. Also, that Phoenix chip. I turned to face her. Establish a biomedical company in Nebula Corp's name. You will be fully responsible for it. The Vanguard will provide all technical and financial support. Scarlett's breathing instantly became rapid. She knew what this meant. It meant the commander was handing one of the Vanguard's most important future industries into her hands. What trust? What glory? Scarlett Cross will never let the commander down. She knelt on one knee again, her voice shaking with excitement. I don't need your guarantees. I only look at results. I walked up to her, reached out, and gently lifted her chin. Her skin was fair and delicate, feeling like fine silk. Eyes meeting, I could see the fire burning in hers. Do your job well. I can give you everything you want. My voice seemed to have a magical power, causing her to surrender completely. Everything I am belongs to the commander. She closed her eyes, eyelashes trembling slightly, and offered her red lips. 3 days later, a massive earthquake occurred in New York's business world. The $100 billion Sterling dynasty collapsed overnight. All industries under the Sterling Group saw their stocks plummet and capital chains rupture. Sniped frantically by countless mysterious forces, they declared bankruptcy within 3 days. The family head, Arthur Sterling, was taken away for investigation due to suspected financial crimes and illegal trading. He would likely spend the rest of his life in prison. Julian Sterling died in a car accident while street racing. No remains were left. The once illustrious Sterling family vanished into smoke as if they had never existed. As for the Vance family, their end was even more miserable. The Vance Group's partners canceled contracts one after another. Banks stopped loans and called in debts. The company was found to have massive tax evasion issues and was hit with astronomical fines, becoming insolvent and entering liquidation bankruptcy. All properties, luxury cars, and savings under the Vance name were seized by the court and auctioned to pay debts. Unable to handle the blow, Richard Vance suffered a sudden stroke, paralyzed in bed and unable to speak. Eleanor's hair turned white overnight. From a pampered socialite, she turned into a madwoman begging everywhere for her husband's medical fees. Yet not a single person was willing to lend a hand. Former friends and relatives avoided them like the plague. As for Victoria Vance, the former top beauty of New York, the Ice Queen CEO, she lost everything. From the clouds, she fell into the mud. To treat her father, to survive, she had to let go of all pride and dignity. She went to interviews, but no company dared to hire her. Everyone knew the Vance family had offended a figure with sky-high power. Anyone who harbored her would be opposing that figure. With no way out, she could only take the lowest-level jobs. Washing dishes, handing out flyers, cleaning toilets. Her slender hands that once played the piano were now covered in chilblains and calluses. That beautiful face that once drove countless men crazy was now haggard from exposure to the elements and malnutrition. More than once, in the dead of night, she knelt in front of the villa she used to live in, crying her heart out. She thought of me. She thought of every word I had ever said to her. She thought of my calm, indifferent eyes. Regret gnawed at her heart like a venomous snake, day and night. She tried to find me, wanting to beg for my forgiveness. But she found that I had evaporated, leaving no trace. She didn't know that at this moment, I was on a luxury yacht crossing the ocean, enjoying the sun and sea breeze. Beside me, Scarlett, wearing a bikini, was carefully peeling grapes for me. "Commander, the Vance family matter has been handled," she reported softly, feeding a crystal-clear grape to my lips. I ate it and gave a faint. "Victoria is now working as a cleaner in a nightclub," Scarlett added carefully, watching my expression. "She works 16 hours a day. Life is very hard for her." "Is that so?" I picked up a glass of champagne, swirling it, looking at the distant horizon where the sea met the sky, my face devoid of expression. "Commander, do you want to go see her?" I turned my head, looked at Scarlett, and laughed. "See her? Just an insignificant person. Remember, I never look twice at the trash I've thrown away. Some people, once missed, are missed for a lifetime. And in some people's worlds, once you fall behind, you can never catch up. My journey is the stars and the sea. As for the dust I've stepped on, what does their ending have to do with me?" Story complete.